talk about that. Um, so we'll get started. So Diana, if I could have that first page, I thought it would, I don't know, I suspect by looking at who's here, people have been following the election reasonably closely. But in any case, I'm going to start out with a few take-home messages that came out of yesterday. Those that paid attention to what was going on online and on printed media and so on, there was great fear of this so-called red wave, which is traditional so-called in midterm elections after the first 2 years of a new president. But anyway, it's been pretty clear that there was no red wave. There, as some even in the Republican camp said, a ripple. But unfortunately, that's still significant because it is going to be very difficult for the Democrats to get much of what they want to do, if anything. So there's going to be a lot of horse trading, unless there are, of course, some defectors from the Republicans in the House. But we'll get to what happened. But the second take-home message, for me at least, was that it was pretty clear that abortion rights and reproductive rights were incredibly important to voters, and they won in virtually every test of it across all the states. The third take home for me was that the low midterm turnout wins bode well for Democrats in 2024, because in 2024, the presidential election year will have a higher turnout and more Democrats. So I think that is a very a reasonable sign. The other take home for me was that the election deniers in many cases lost significantly, and we'll get into some of those, although some did win, including one Secretary of State, which doesn't bode well at all. The other one is that in some states, it was clear that they couldn't easily gerrymander statewide elections. But of course, because statewide elections went Democratic, despite the fact that the state houses were so gerrymandered and the House of Representative districts were so gerrymandered that Democrats couldn't win in individual races, but they won in statewide. And those were very significant. We'll get into some of those. I occasionally, during election intensity, will turn on Fox News to see what their spin is. And as I said here, I did wash my ears and mouth out with soap after listening. It's pretty awful to watch. But anyway, and they were really downbeat. And they were saying Republicans just didn't do well, Democrats did a better job, et cetera, et cetera. And Diana, you have something else on.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I actually don't know what just happened. So let me go back to the drawing board here. Sorry about that.
Probably hit something else on your desktop.
Well, I was trying to move it down. So, but I must have. And now I'm trying to get full. Oh, here we go. Wait. Okay, sorry. Sorry about that.
Well, it's my fault.
I just went back to the beginning here.
Okay, so so if you can go down, and okay, stop. So as most of you, if not all of you, already know, that Warnock is going to be in a runoff against Herschel Walker on December 6th. And of course, that means a pitch for everybody needs to pitch in for getting out the vote there as soon as we can, meaning texting, calling, phone, sending money to the race and to rides to the polls and everything else. So we're going to bug you about that. And obviously, as we all know, every vote counts. Some races were within really, really narrow margins. We don't even know the answer to them right now. And as Elsa pointed out earlier, one of the races that many of us were supporting locally for County Board of Supervisors in one of the districts where the race is within 86 votes. Which is, pretty small. Okay, so if you can move down one page, we'll start talking about the Senate races. Fetterman, as you know, beat that guy from Oz, who, as somebody already mentioned, Oz conceded. And unfortunately, in Wisconsin, Johnson beat Mandela Barnes. It's a close race, but didn't win. And Sherry Beasley lost in North Carolina, and J.D. Vance beat Tim Ryan. Maggie Hassan did win, and Kelly's race in Arizona is still undecided. It's close. And updates are probably happening as we're in this meeting, so we don't know. And Nevada is also undecided. And you can see at the top, it says Senate, it's 48 to 49 in the Senate right now, 48 Democrats, 49 Republicans. And of course, the Republicans were expecting to pick up at least 2, maybe 3, 4, or 5. They've said this repeatedly. So far, the Democrats have been holding the line. We've been fighting hard, and hopefully we'll maintain at least 50-50, but hopefully gain one. We'll see. Because with Nevada and Arizona still undecided, and I think there's another one, I can't remember. There's one more.
Georgia.
Oh yeah, Georgia for the runoff, right? So those 3 are up. If we happen to get all 3, that'd be awesome, but we'll see. In any case, we're going to have to fight like hell to get Walker out and Warnock in. Okay, so the House of Representatives, and I'm not going to go through one by one because there are so many, but right now it stands at 213 Democrats and 222 Republicans.
Marshall?
Yes.
I'm looking at what you have on this page, and Cortez Masto is Senate in Nevada, not New Hampshire.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Geez. No, I meant Maggie Hassan, up in New Hampshire. Okay, I can't do it.
What is her name?
No, Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire.
Oh, it doesn't let me correct it.
Won the Senate race.
Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh.
I put it on the wrong one. Sorry. I put the wrong office and the wrong person. Because I was trying to get it up to date at the last minute, and I was watching all the results
Yeah,
until.
so that whole line can just come out.
But
sorry, what?
but we can't do it online on Zoom right now. So
Yeah, I can't do it.
let's
Yeah.
skip that.
Okay. And an interesting loss was Sean Patrick Maloney, who was the head of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. He lost in a district that had no clue who he was. He had no name recognition, and he forced out Jamal Bowman by moving into that district that had been reformed. And I'm sure a lot of people are quite annoyed at that one. But anyway, so it stands at 213 Democrats and 220 Republicans, which means they have a majority. There's still some undecided races, but they'll still have a slim majority. And that means that they can block all kinds of things, but some of the things that they want to get passed, they're going to have to do some negotiation with Democrats. And I should mention that with regard to the Senate, one of the the really critical things about the Republicans, if they win the majority, McConnell is going to block, any nominations for virtually everything, any judicial seats, and so on, because he'll do what he has to do to block them.
If he is speaker.
If he is speaker, yes.
So can I ask you a question?
He's not going to be speaker, he's going to be majority.
But yeah, I say if they get the majority of the Senate, yes.
Well, he has people who want to take his place, though. I mean, if they become the majority, it's not a foregone conclusion that he will be the speaker.
Well, that's
not the speaker anyway. He's the majority leader.
The majority leader. The speaker.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay.
The House Speaker fight, that is going to be a big battle. I think that's what you're probably referring to.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I was saying the wrong thing. So can I ask you, under the House, on MSNBC, they, as you have, list 213 Dems and 222 Reaps. And they say on that screen that 7 can go either way. They still, there's 7 that need to be identified. In order, and if the Dems get those 7, then they'll be able to take the House again. Well, I'm not very good at math, but that math is not clear to me. Why are they saying that?
I don't know the answer to that, because 218 is the majority, and according to the current count, they have 222. So I don't know why they would have said that.
Okay.
We'll have to wait and see when the dust settles, but it looks like they've taken the House, and that's the way it looks.
I'm sorry.
No, but 222 is projected. It is not assured.
That's true.
Yeah.
You're right.
April's comment in the chat is clear about that.
Can we
Ashley, you have your hand.
Can we observe hands up?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
hold on.
sorry,
We do have hands up. So we have Ashley and Bill.
Okay. I listened to part of President Biden's press report today, and he was pointing out, talking about what happens if we lose the House. And he was saying, well, he, as far as he was concerned, he still has veto power, and they aren't going to have anything near 60% to get over that. And number 2, he already got his main projects through, his bills, the 3 major ones. He's already done those, so that's good. We did make hay while the sun shone, during the last 2 years. So we have that. And yeah, that's true about those are projected seats. It's not, nobody's calling the house yet.
Yeah, and obviously, even though he got a lot of what he want passed, there are some other things that got dropped out that, of course, the Democrats would like to pass if they have a Senate majority and get rid of the so-called other two Democrats. Bill, you had your hand up, and I think April, did you have your hand up for too? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see. Okay, Bill, and then April.
Okay, a couple comments. Number one, if I just follow the math of what people were saying about projected in the House, it means the House needs 5 more. That if they're projected at 213 or they could get 5 more, that would be 218, and that would be the majority number that Marshall mentioned. So basically what's at stake in the House at this point is, for the Democrats, is they need 5 more victories in the House. Now, as to the Senate, my understanding last time I looked is, and again, I'm not sure this is projected or for real right now, but it looked like 49. If that's the case, then what we've got is 3 Senate seats still up for grabs. Kelly looks pretty solid last time I looked. The thing about that you need to know about Nevada is that, yes, Cortez is trailing at the moment, but the amount of votes in between are relatively small, and that where most of the votes are still out there are in counties that tend to vote more Democratic, the larger counties in Nevada. So keep that in mind. I think that Nevada is very much in play for the Democrats still. And that leaves us Georgia, okay? If we can win 2 out of 3, then we've got 50-50 when we're back in the Senate the way we are right now.
Yeah, that you're right. And Arizona is still up in the air.
All 3, we've got a Senate majority, not.
Okay, thanks. April, and then, I'm sorry.
Bill, something's wrong with your audio. Something is wrong with your audio.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Bill.
I just basically want people to keep that perspective, okay? That every
Bill, your audio is breaking up. Oops.
Well, I was just muted. I'll go back to mute now. I'm sorry. Berta, can I go back in the other room? No. Well, I got to get some power. This thing's going to go out.
Okay. April?
Yes, hi.
Go get me the cord.
As far as Nevada's concerned, they can cure ballots there. In other words, contact voters whose ballots have not been accepted for correctable errors, but this has to be done by Tuesday. So Bay Area Coalition is getting details probably today and tonight about how we can be part of that effort. So anybody that wants to make phone calls to voters in Nevada that can fix their ballots, and it could be as many as 5,000 votes that need to be addressed. That's helpful. And then also I saw Elsa's message in the chat, and Bay Area Coalition will be joining with Center for Common Ground to make the phone calls into Georgia. As this happened before, targeting a lot of voters who usually don't get phone calls, which would be in the rural areas, and really get them out to vote. Because we need to get people that didn't vote in the election yesterday and make sure that they show up and bring their family members. So anybody that's interested in doing that, contact Elsa. The other thing too about the numbers, I watched coverage somewhat, but I mean, it's it's a commercial venture. What they want people to keep watching the screen. So they have all kinds of projections and stuff that isn't real. And about once an hour, they remind everybody that it's not real. So that's just kind of the way I look at it. It's for now, it's kind of a snapshot on what people might think is happening. So don't follow the narrative. That's what Michael Moore was saying for the last 3 months, is don't follow the narrative because it's wrong. And it was wrong. And it continues. We'll know when the votes are counted. One thing I did want to bring up is Congressional District 22. Rudy Salas is one of the ones that's still being decided. He's down about 3,000 votes now to the Republican, but that is often the case in the Central Valley. And when TJ Cox has won in the past, he was down by even more. So we remain very hopeful that that's one of the House seats we're going to flip. But the bigger issue, and I don't know exactly who I'm going to find to address this, but the lack of bilingual Spanish, English campaign materials continues to be a huge problem. And yet again, we had individual volunteers producing and paying for materials so that our canvassers could go out and talk to voters in their native language. This is not a way to win elections. This is not a way to gain the support of the Latino community nationwide, and it really needs to be addressed. So that's something I'm going to see what we can do. If I know somebody in the DCCC or whoever makes these decisions is not doing the right job. So even if this works out great and we do keep the Senate and we keep the House, this is not good. And they can't just keep cruising along doing things the same way. And then the other thing I'll say is the fact that the youth vote was so pivotal in yesterday means that there's got to be a lot more outreach to youth groups too, and finding out how youth groups are organizing and what other groups can do to assist them in what they're doing, not try to convince them to work with us in what we're doing. I mean, we've just got to be sensitive to the shift in the demographics and put the people who are in charge in the driver's seat. So that's what I have to say about that. As you could tell, my voice is kind of gone from too much phone banking. So thanks. And I think I'm going to probably drop off by now.
Before you drop off, just one more minute. But thanks. That was a really terrific update. But if you could provide us, and we'll send it out, with the contact so that we can help with the curing of those Nevada votes. That would be great.
Who should I email the information to? To you, Marshall?
Yeah, sure. I'll send it to the right person to send it out to all the membership. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your help with that. And hopefully we're having a meeting tomorrow afternoon, so we should have more information. But one way or another, I'll be in touch with you, Marshall.
Great.
And so thank you, everybody.
Thanks, April.
Okay.
You're so right about what you said. You're so right.
Okay, terrific. So we have our first task, which would be great if we could make a difference in that Nevada election to get those, what they call curing their votes when there's a signature issue. They have to come in and re-sign and verify it's theirs and so on. Okay, now the next thing I wanted to mention was the fact that the Democrats did quite well in the governor's races, and switched a number from Republican to Democratic. And so I've listed some of those key ones. I'm sure there are more because I didn't cover all the governor races, but there were a number of key outcomes. And the Democrats won the governorships in, at least projected, to have won the Democratic the governorships in Kansas and in Oregon, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, which was really, thought was going to be a very tough one. Maryland switched from Republican to Democrat. And Gretchen Whitmer won, which was expected to be, a pretty tight, heavy-duty race, but she won actually quite handily, it looks like. In addition, to Whitmer winning her race, she also won both of the state houses. And that's the first time I think in something like 3 or 4 decades that the Democrats have been able to do that there. And they also did that in another state, and I can't remember which one it is, unfortunately. But they also won the Democratic governorship and both houses for the first time in something like 40 years. Let me see if I can find which one that was. Oh, that was Pennsylvania. Yeah. So what remains to be seen is Arizona and Nevada, to see how those come out, because those are also very critical. As we all know, election deniers are running in both of those states for that, as well as Secretary of State. And so we have to find out over when the votes are in. We don't know the answer now. That's true of Secretary of State in Arizona and Nevada, which I didn't put down there. I didn't get to the Attorney General listing by trying to get up-to-date info here, but so we'll have to see how that goes as time goes on. And the California races, April did a really good job of covering that. But the bottom line is a couple of people that we have been looking at, Democrats, are in tight races right now. That includes Mike Levin and Katie Porter, who, are really important Democrats in the House. Okay, so the propositions, which we've spent some time talking about in our meetings, as people may or may not know, abortion rights, reproductive rights, Prop 1 won handily, very handily, as it did virtually throughout the country, which is pretty amazing compared to even 20 years ago. The two propositions that were for changing the gambling online rules both lost. I'm not sure why they lost, other than that they were competing against each other and they spent like $600 million. Can you imagine how much money they thought they were going to get if they won? Because they put in all that money to try to win. They knew they were going to recover much more than that. But anyway, they lost both Prop 26 and 27. The art and music Prop 29 did pass handily. The Prop 30, which was the tax on millionaires to pay for electric vehicles and fire control, was defeated. Governor Newsom, as we all probably know, came out against it for reasons which we all probably have our own analyses. But all the environmental groups were in favor of it. And I don't know how many on this call read that proposition, but it was really a great climate proposition. It was going to provide money for low income and disadvantaged communities to be able to buy electric vehicles, get infrastructure, as well as everybody else to be able to do it. And Flavia, I'll call you in a minute, because I see you have your hand raised. And the last one was flavored tobacco, to outlaw flavored tobacco. And that also passed. I think that's going to have pretty strong national repercussions, but I suspect it's going to be in the courts for a while.
What happened to 28?
Oops, why did I leave that out? That's an accident. And Prop 28, I did.
What was 20?
Dialysis clinics.
Yeah, that, I think that lost.
No, I'm talking about the one on music and arts in school.
No, music and art passed,
That-
but the dialysis failed.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, 28 lost and art and music passed.
Uh-huh. That's 28.
28 is the dialysis. Maybe I get it backwards.
Yeah, you have it backwards.
Yeah, so the dialysis lost and the art music passed handily. I mean, like, I don't know, 75% or something, if I recall. Let's see, we have Flavia and then Gail. Flavia, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So my question was for April, but she didn't stay on the phone, on the call, after she made her statement. But I didn't understand, what was it that she said that the Democratic leadership did wrong with respect to Latino voters?
They didn't have Spanish language information and handouts and enough Spanish speaking people on to do calls, and they just didn't do outreach properly for Spanish speaking voters.
Okay,
And that's what
thank
she
you.
said she's going to start working on hard. I
Okay,
think that's the essence of what you said, unless somebody else has a comment about it. And Gail, you have your hand up too, right, Gail?
Right. I was just gonna second what April said about the lack of Spanish language materials. It's chronic with every Democratic announcement practically, except for Fixin. They do a pretty good job, but almost everything else that the Democratic Party does not have enough of Spanish language support, or, the text is not translated. And I also wonder, I haven't checked yet, does anybody know how V did in Menlo Park?
Who?
That was about housing.
The V failed by about 65, 75 points.
Woohoo, okay.
Well, I mean, the people who voted no did it by 65, 75 points.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm not sure that what the state did is great, but these sounded really terrible, Good, that's good news. Thank you.
Okay, so that's sort of the overview. We still have a lot of things up in the air. And so why don't we open it up for where do we go from here? Obviously, the first thing that came up about where do we go from here, the first two things. One is to do what we can to help Warnock in the runoff. And the second was to help in the Nevada curing. Ooh, what happened? Okay. So where do we go from here?
I'm sorry, Marshall, you didn't want me to stop.
Yeah, I did, but
Oh,
but
okay.
I didn't. I saw your screen saver, and I thought, I mean, your screen share, and I thought, what did I do? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No. Okay. So what are the strategies we should be looking at in the upcoming time? Because in my opinion, the 2024 election is around the corner, but we need some time off. Oh, and so we have Ashley and Flavia have their hands up. Ashley?
Yeah, before we do that, I'm wondering if anyone can talk about some of the local local races. Diana, you must have been following those pretty closely.
Yeah,
It looks like Ray won for Ray Miller
well,
won
yeah.
Board of
Right.
Supervisors, and the other race is
Well, not one, because these are not final, right? Only, so election night, only 25% of the votes had been counted. And those are only the ballots that they had in hand. Those were not even the ballots that were dropped into the drop boxes. So there are, many tens of thousands of votes that, still need to be counted. And the next night that they're going to announce will be 4:30 on Thursday. And then a week after that, 4:30 a week later. So we have to be patient. So I'm really cautious about saying that Ray is currently ahead by a significant amount, about 20 points. It was like 50 something to 30 something. So it was really a significant amount. Charles Stone is just slightly ahead. No,
So
actually, it's the other way
behind,
around. Yeah, he's slightly behind, actually, but it's only a few points.
it's
Def-
86 votes.
yeah,
That's
it's
the
really
difference.
close.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah.
close. And then my friend Adam Lorraine, who I thought might be with us tonight, he also is behind like 35 votes or something to his opponent. So this is very doable. But one of the things that I tell my friends in San Mateo who are watching this race in Pacifica really closely, because my friend Christine in Pacifica is currently ahead of the candidate who was endorsed by the Democratic Party. And so, but I'm telling people that even though it's not very many votes, we have to be cautious because district elections, it's not very many votes. So when I was running in 2018, for instance, it was hundreds of votes that were between us in the first night, but that's citywide. So that's tens of thousands of votes. But in a district election in Redwood City is a much larger city than Pacifica, for instance, and it could be 2,000 voters. Those are all the voters in our district that we would be going after, Democrat, Republican, and Independent. So we just need to be aware of that when we're talking about it. So in Pacifica, which is so much smaller, it's possible that they only have 1,000 or 1,500 voters that they're going after. So it doesn't take very many votes for us to get, to catch up sometimes. Let's see, Adam, we're at least I can only, report that I was supporting him, giving, moral support. Christine in Pacifica, Mary was unopposed, and Sue, she's ahead in Pacifica. Redwood City, oh, Diane Howard is ahead 70, she got 75% of the votes against her opponent. Let's see, oh, and Kaya Aiken is unopposed.
How about Kevin Mullen?
Hold on a
Oh,
minute.
he's
Hold
got
on.
70,
Wait.
73% of the votes. No, 60, it was more like 60, it was closer. It was more like 65, and then his opponent was like 45 or something. It was still 20, the percentage points were 20%. So, but
Okay, so we have people's hands up, so hold on.
okay.
Okay, so we have Flavia and then Bill. Flavia?
Okay, so Ashley already spoke up, right? Because she was ahead of me.
Yeah,
Okay. Marshall, you asked the question, where do we go from here? And so I wanted to, I'll do this very briefly, relate my take on that question. Carrie and I had just completed a class for retired folks. It was called Capitalism, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And he recommended us to watch this documentary series on YouTube, and it's called Century of the Self. And it was a documentary that was done back in 1994, but it covers the whole 20th century and the birth of psychoanalysis and how psychoanalysis played a role in propaganda and shaping society for both Britain and the US. And then it also got into politics about how the GOP played off of what and used the psychological trends that was going on in marketing and so forth, and how the Labour Party in Britain lost and has lost continually so badly. And it's kind of mirroring how the Democrats struggle. And it's because we're not reminding people that the superpower that we all possess is being stronger together. And that's the thing that I think that we need to go back to and talk about. And it was really good because it featured a young Robert Reich talking about how Clinton kind of sold out to market research, and he only polled the swing voters that he needed to win the next election to find out what they want, and he formed his agenda on what these swing voters wanted. So he kind of abandoned the left because he was just chasing a win for the election. And so the argument was between Dick Morris, who I don't like, said, we don't have a vision if we can't get elected. And Robert Reich was saying, we can't get elected without a vision. He used a different word for a vision, a referendum or a principle or something. But anyway, I just wanted to give you my 2 cents on that, a lot of times in Zoom calls, they have an icebreaker game and they said, oh, if you wanted to have a superpower, what would it be? And people name all these silly things. And I think we have to, remind ourselves that our superpower is standing up together as one.
So your where do we go from here is to watch the documentary series, Century of the Self?
Yeah, it's a 4-part series, so 4 nights, and it's really interesting because we've all lived through this, right?
Where is this documentary? Is it on NPR or what?
It's on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Great.
So it's something that we could do while we're recovering after the election as individuals.
Okay, great. Thanks. Bill, you're next.
Couple points on where do we go from here. One, I would echo second what April was talking about in terms of anything we can do around the cure issue in Nevada. So we should get active with that. Secondly, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but Rachel Maddow has had a podcast going on. What's it called?
Ultra.
It's called Ultra, and
Yeah.
it really kind of mirrors similar politics that are going on today in Washington in terms of how the right is aligning itself with Russia, with Putin, and how back in the 40s the Congress, both the Senate, members of the Senate and the House of both parties were aligning themselves with Hitler, and how that all, the accountability all came about for that. I think it's a piece of history that a lot of people may not know about, but I highly encourage people to check out that podcast if you haven't already.
Okay, great. So other ideas about where we go from here?
Okay. Next week, the San Mateo County Democratic Central Committee meeting will be on Thursday and the 17th. And from 7 o'clock until 7:30, we've engaged Christine Pelosi as the speaker for the meeting. And she is going to be talking about the election. And she certainly has an inside view of a lot of it. So she'll be analyzing the election and talking about lessons learned and where do we go from here. So I'm going to recommend that you tune into that. I'll make contact me. I don't have the link for that meeting yet, but if you contact me that you're interested, I'll send you the link.
Other ideas about where we go from here?
I think on the climate change, we can continue with our ideas because it's not at all clear that Biden cannot get something done beyond with Sharm el-Sheikh on the way, and the necessity to give money to the underdeveloped countries.
Give money to underdeveloped countries?
Well, that's the whole purpose of the meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Oh, okay, yeah, right, okay.
Give them money so they can do something.
Right.
The other thing is, it's not something we can do anymore, but I was pretty upset when I saw that J.D. Vance got won in Ohio. That was very upsetting to me.
Yes, very. But it's interesting that somebody pointed out that in his sort of acceptance speech or winning speech, he listed something like 30 people that he thanked, and he did not mention Trump. People thought that was really significant for what it's worth.
And by the way, you know, Trump being so far off on Dr. Oz, he said that that was actually Melania's fault. She
Really?
Yes, he did.
How did he put that on her?
Yes. Yes.
Nothing is his fault.
Whose fault? I didn't get it. Whose
His
fault?
wife, his
Melania.
wife's fault. His wife's fault, Greg.
Oz's wife?
No, Trump's wife.
Oh.
He blamed Oz on Trump's wife, his own wife. I guess he meant she was the one that said he should support Oz or something.
Yes,
Right.
I mean, anything that fails is never his fault.
Well, he had said it before the election that if his candidate, this is almost verbatim, if my candidates win, I get all the credit. But if my candidates lose, I have no blame at all. No blame at all goes to me.
Who said that? Trump?
Trump.
He said the same thing about Fifth Avenue. Shooting somebody on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
Diana, you have your hand up.
Well, it's just to let you know that I actually looked up the local elections and I wanted to share a couple of things. So our Sally Lieber is winning by 70%. So she's a clear winner.
Mhm.
And when I was talking about the difference in numbers because of the area, Kevin, for instance, is doing the entire assembly district, right? And so there's 10,000 votes between him and his opponent. And so that's not enough. I mean, that's too much for him to make up. But our friend Adam Lorraine is only 20 votes between him and his opponent, who at the moment is ahead, right? And Sarah Fields, who is on the Central Committee with us, she's behind in the San Mateo race by only about 50 points, right? 50 votes. And And then Christine, I was mentioning, is ahead of Robbie, but it's a couple of hundred votes. And I don't think he can make up a couple of hundred votes in such a small town as Pacifica. So that's kind of what I was trying to say about some things can be made up, but it depends on how many votes the total votes are. The other one I wanted to mention is that I'm really fond of Maurice Goodman, and he's ahead of his opponent by 80%. I mean, not that much difference, but his total votes 80%. He Maurice Goodman, he's former community college board member, and he got kind of a rough deal in the last election. And so I was really happy to see that he was running for city council in Millbrae, and he's winning. He currently has 80% of the vote. And we were
So
asking,
he's not 80% ahead.
right,
The
exactly,
opponent, he has 80% of the total vote.
exactly.
Thank you, thank you. 80% ahead is really amazing.
Well, he's so the other person has 20% of the vote, right? And so Ray, and there's 1,000. Oh no, there's about 8,000 votes between Ray and Laura. She can't make that up. And between Noelia and Charleston, there is less than 100 votes between them. So that can definitely go either way.
Mhm.
And our friend April Northrup, who also is on the Central Committee, she is, there's only a few votes between her and her opponent also. So, and Kevin and David, I think I mentioned, that's, yeah, 10,000 votes. So that's too much for him to make up. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, that's why I didn't spend too much time listing all those, because so many are up in the air.
Yeah,
I agree
yeah,
with
that's
you.
right.
Yeah. Okay,
What
Bill.
happened to Sarah Fields?
Excuse me?
So Sarah Fields is currently second. There are about 5 people running, well, maybe there are 4 people running for that seat, and she's second. But the
What seat is it?
city council in San Mateo, in that district, so San Mateo has districts, and she is currently second, but she's pretty close to her opponent, and there are few enough votes between them that she could make it up. So that's undecided. That one's undecided.
Okay, Bill, you have your hand up.
Couple other races, maybe Diana mentioned this, but Margaret Becker is leading in her city council race in Redwood City. She's very progressive. She would make a big difference on the Redwood City Council. She has strong background in housing. She was on the housing committee. And also, Diane may know this, but there's a new person elected to the Sequoia School District Board, high school district, named Nori Sathvik. Nori just recently graduated from Menlo Atherton High School, where he was the student representative to the school board at that time. He's now a student at Stanford University, but he is going to be a really good progressive on the school board for Sequoia.
And what was that? What's the name? Bill?
What do you want, Marshall?
What was the name of the last candidate?
Nori, Nori,
Oh,
Sathvik, Sathvik. Okay.
mhm. Okay, and Ashley, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was curious last night, watching all the returns, and I wasn't hearing anything about the squad. I was watching MSNBC, and they don't like to talk about the squad. They don't want to give them any press at all. So I went looking on the internet, and where I found it was in an article on Fox News. They covered what happened to the squad, and it was just straight reporting. This was, no commentary at all. But all the members of the current squad, which I think number 4 people right now, all of them won by landslides. And then they didn't name them, but Fox News said that 6 other minority and progressive people had won and would likely, were now coming into the House and likely would become members of the squad. So the squad was going to be up to 10 people and would have more influence in Congress. And they said, reported all that. So I found it on Fox News. I couldn't find it on MSNBC.
Well, actually, I kind of wonder if they keep the reporting down because when they report it, there's an uptick in the threats against them, the personal threats against them. And maybe that's another reason why Fox News doesn't care about reporting on them, because all they have to do is mention them, and it makes people who hate them call and threaten them. No one gets more threats than they do.
I've heard, like Claire McCaskill, do not mention the squad in her presence.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, and how will they ever have any influence if it's never reported what they do or what?
But they do come on to MSNBC, though. They interview them all the time.
Not all the time.
Well, I've seen them frequently.
Yeah, it's not so frequently. But you hear, oh, and, don't get Joe Scarborough started on the squad.
Yeah, but he's a Republican.
Well, yeah. Yeah, anyway, they did well. The progressives did well.
They did. I'm gonna throw out a couple of things for where do we go here, go from here, and see what people have to say. How do we deal with the conspiracy theories that are going to come out? How do we deal with the lies? What are the ways? What are good strategies to deal with that? And more to what we can actually do is, how do we focus more on getting the young voters out, because they are making a big difference in every one of these elections. And I think that's that. And how do we get Latinx voters to realize that the Democrats are trying to do stuff that they should be voting for? Those are 2 critical things, because if we're going to win, we have to get the message out. Do we need to have a local strategy for that? Or how do we get involved in a national strategy for that? I just put it on the table.
Well, those are old questions. We've been struggling with those for some time now.
Yep, but they're really important.
Casey knows. Casey knows.
Well, I'm going to take your first one about the lies. I seem to remember that when we talked about what this meeting was going to be about, and we talked about whether it was about results or trends.
No,
My
whatever.
feeling is that one of the,
I'll let you know what, I like that soup.
Hey, yeah,
Excuse
everybody
me.
muted. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Casey.
thank you. My feeling is that one of my big takeaways of yesterday is that Trump is losing his power. People are beginning to move away from him in ways that I think we can't quite appreciate yet, but I think it's happening. I think young people especially. So my feeling about the lies is basically to ignore them, because even if I think there's a danger in going out and trying to offset them in some way, because in a funny way, it keeps it going. It's like bad rumors. So my feeling about lies is ignore him, treat him as though he doesn't matter, because that's truly what is going to happen. He's not going to matter by the time we get to 2024, I think. I've been impressed, I've been impressed with the young people that I've seen down at the DVC, doing phone banking and being involved. I'm not sure if we, I think it's great to encourage young people. I'm not quite sure how to do it. That's my 5 cents worth.
Well, I think it's worth at least $1. No, that's
Oh,
good
thank you.
advice.
Please mail it to me, okay?
Okay, and we have Bill and Greg's hands up. I don't know who was first. I think it was Bill. You're muted. There you go. Okay.
Okay, yeah, quickly, if I can recall what I wanted to say now, in response to what you just raised, Marshall, first of all, I think in terms of Democrats and Hispanic
Oh dear, I think you
people
froze.
work better together on the local level here in Redwood City. We're making some progress. There's more Hispanic people on the city council now. Noelia Corzo has a real shot at becoming the first Latina woman on the county board. So those things are changing. I think what we need to do as Democrats, especially as white Democrats, is listen more to what the Hispanic community has to say to us rather than we're thinking that we have something that they need from us. I think it's more like we need to know what they need and work from there in that orientation. Secondly, with regard to youth, again, I'm seeing a lot of younger people now getting involved more in elected offices in politics. James Coleman was an example up in South San Francisco. Lizette on the city council in Redwood City is another example. Elmer Martinez Sabalos, he's relatively young. He's older, but he's in his 20s, I think. Nori, who I just mentioned, Savquick, is only 19 years old. So I think what we need to do in terms of youth is encourage younger people, and I think ways that we can do more of that will be another way to try to bring younger people in. I would also mention that we're often frustrated we don't have younger people in our group, but I do note that there are some DFAs, particularly one in Palo Alto, which is almost the flip side of us, because I went to one of their meetings and I was the only person, over probably 50 in the room, or maybe 35 in the room. So there are some other DFA groups that are kind of the flip side of us that are basically being led by younger voters, younger progressives.
Oh.
Okay,
Well,
Greg.
they're kind of an anomaly. There are almost no DFA groups left of any stripe across the country, maybe 5 or 6.
Well, be that as it may, I was impressed by it. It's a local group in Palo Alto. They're very active, and
That's great.
maybe it's not a DFA group actually starting to get involved in democratic politics, and we just need to be more aware of how to work with those groups.
Right.
Okay, Greg.
I don't know how to measure whether Trump is losing it or not. I saw some indications in either direction, so I'm not sure. But one thing I do know, and that's not something that we can do much about, is that he has 5 legal challenges coming up now against him. And so that's something good for us. Now, whether Merrick Garland is going to do anything, we don't know. But the lawsuit that he's facing in Georgia is for real. So we may be helped by all these lawsuits, and that we can't influence them very much, but we may be helped by them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And talking about trends, he didn't fare too well in the election. So it remains to be seen if he's even going to announce, because he claimed he was going to announce on the 14th of November. And then there was a rumor he was even going to announce today. So we'll see whether yesterday's trend has made any difference. We'll see.
Well, when you say the trend was not good for him, it was mixed. It was not horrible for him either, because he prevailed in Florida, he prevailed in North Carolina, he prevailed in Ohio, and so we don't know.
The point was made earlier that he prevailed in those contests where people were protecting their own seats, not where people were trying to take a seat from a Democrat, or, you know, he didn't do so well. You know, the Oz Fetterman example, they didn't do well against a strong Democrat. They did well when they were just like in Florida, where they have a really strong network and they're not running against a strong Democrat. So it was, so he didn't do, it was suggested that he didn't do as well as he has been saying he has, that, you know, that, yeah. Anyway, that point was made about the fact that it was basically people who were already very firm, you know, in their seats. So.
And when he lost, it was his wife's fault anyway.
Yeah, or somebody's. Okay, Bill.
Yeah, I just want to mention one other point you'd made earlier, Marshall, about the whole, you know, right-wing movement, especially in the Republican Party, but also with regards to Trump. And again, that goes back to Garland, Maryland, and that is until there's some accountability for a lot of this stuff, and the January 6th group really needs to step it up if they can. Until we have that accountability, we're going to continue to have problems. So there's got to be some more accountability, and the January 6th group did a little bit of it, but we've got a ways to go on that.
Yeah, but the January 6th, if they get the House, they're going to dissolve that committee.
Well, that remains to be seen.
If they lose, you mean, whether or not they lose.
No. If the Republicans win the House.
Remains to be seen.
No, but I'm saying if they win the House.
If they win the House, it remains to be seen, because it still has a question of the leadership, Greg, and who's going to be in charge. I'm not so sure it's going to be Kevin McCarthy.
The other ones are worse.
It could be worse. Yeah.
Remains to be seen what happens.
Well, we'll see.
Well, that's always true.
Okay, so any other ideas about where we go from here? Comments about trends? Anything else? How about some of the people we haven't heard from? Anybody have an idea to give us?
Just lose everything.
Are they
Okay.
there?
All right, well, okay, so when we get contacts for helping out in Nevada, we'll send it out, and we'll also remind people of organizations that they can help immediately with the runoff, the Warnock runoff, and we'll try to get as much help in those that we can. Anybody have any other comments they want to make?
You get the link in the minutes, maybe through Diana has it, for the program that Flavia mentioned on YouTube, that we could hook into that. And then the other program that I recommend is Rachel Maddow's current podcast called Ultra. There's a real history lesson there to what's going on today, and there's still episodes that are coming forth, but it's gotten real intriguing, the parallels that are there and how the accountability did and did not go down in Congress.
Okay, yeah, I did put that documentary series in the chat.
And also note Rachel Maddow's podcast.
Oh, okay, so you want you want it to be included in the reminder that goes
Just
out?
as,
that Marshall was
just as a
referring-
resource, something that people might want to take a look at if they don't know about it.
Okay,
It's a really good podcast on some really significant political history back in the 40s that I don't think a lot of people either don't know about or certainly don't appreciate.
Well, Marshall, we were there in the 40s. What do you remember?
Yeah, well, it's scary. I see, I think the parallels are very similar. And although not everybody on the call on this meeting agrees with me, but you know, I'm very worried about the possibility that we could lose our democracy. Because it only will take a few states that have secretaries of state and their new laws that will allow them to appoint their electors and really mess with the next election. So I'm quite worried.
Yeah, and the other point to go with that, Marshall, is as long as we're governed by the electoral college, that also makes everything real vulnerable. When you look at the fact that a number of presidents that have been elected in the past 10 years or what have you,
We keep
not all of those had majority votes of the people.
right. Oh, and Flavia, you have your hand up.
yeah. So I think it's I agree with you about the danger to democracy and to look at the lead up and, you know, up to World War II and the rise of the Nazis and see what can happen here, because Germany was a democracy. And the Electoral College is a concern because people used to think of Ohio and Florida as swing states, and now they're not. So to compensate, do we have two other states that used to be red and now are blue? No. So it's a question of whether or not anybody who's a Democrat can win without Ohio or Florida. So I guess we have the answer because Biden won without Florida and without Ohio, I think. And but it's like that, you know, what's happening in Arizona and Michigan, New Mexico, Wisconsin, you know, it all has, in Nevada, it's all consequential.
Maybe I could add that another point that was made was that there was huge gerrymandering in Wisconsin, but that didn't prevent them from electing a Democratic governor and preventing a supermajority in their state houses and so there's some celebrating to do, that when Democrats get their people out to vote, we can, you know, take over. And then when in Michigan has become, I mean, that was a purple state, and Michigan now has a Democratic governor and a majority in both houses. So,
Okay.
you know, I think we do have some celebrating to do, and they can start getting rid of some of those. And Michigan, it was mentioned that they got rid of the gerrymandering, and so in Michigan, the districts are more not favorable to either party. And so if the new governor in Wisconsin can get rid of the gerrymandering in Wisconsin, then, you know, maybe that could help as well, because it's apparently considered the most gerrymandered state in the country. So I think we do have some optimism. We have some areas to be, you know, hopeful about. And actually, if we're not hopeful, what is the what is the other choice, you know, and how much, you know, how good is that for us? So, You know, we have to be optimistic, right? I mean, we really have no choice.
There's
So,
no advantage to the pessimism, is what you're saying.
exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
Marshall,
Yeah.
did you get a feeling for why Mandela Barnes lost?
Well, you know, it was very close. It wasn't like a landslide or anything.
That was 47 to 50.
Yeah. So, you know, well, I personally, I think racism plays a role. I think racism probably cost them at least 5%. As a matter of fact, I think that's the case in Florida with Val Demings. I think it's the case with Barnes, and there was a third one.
Well, North Carolina.
Yeah, Beasley, and I think racism is what gave the extra 5%. At least.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
But Ron Johnson is
So-
such a horrible guy.
I mean, there are probably other major contributing factors as well. Yeah.
There's a black governor in Virginia or Maryland.
Maryland, Moore, yeah.
He did okay.
Yeah, true, but
That's why.
Maryland's a strange, I don't know the answer. You know, it doesn't, you know, I mean, 1 out of 4, okay. I'm sure there are a lot of reasons demographically because you know, there's a large, you know, Black population there. Of course, there is also in the other states. But Wisconsin, no.
No, but the Ron Johnson had such a bad reputation that the person could have been of any ethnical background. It's inconceivable to me that this guy had won.
So what was happening too was that if a Republican was running against a white person, then the ads were all about economy, right? But if they were running against a Black person, then the ads were about crime and immigration and other things that we need that go boo in the night, right? And so it is totally about race. It's totally about the things, you know, the fear mongering or whatever, and are losing whatever white wonderfulness we have.
Look at the candidates that lost, you know, Val Demings, Mandela Barnes,
Beasley.
Jerry Beasley, all, you know, strong candidates. The fact that they did so well, you know, is amazing when you bring racism and you know, I don't know how to account for Barack Obama winning. I don't know how to account for that. That was weird time.
Yeah, there's also Stacey Abrams, you know.
Yeah, and
That,
Stacey
Oh, and
Abrams.
Stacey
I mean, oh my
Abrams.
God, she's a
So
force of nature.
awesome. I mean, she's one of the most awesome candidates.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And they would even darken their face. They would darken their skin during, you know, for the ads and the mail. I mean, it is so offensive.
well,
So
you know,
offensive.
it's so obvious, you know, it's so, you know, just blatantly racism. Yeah.
I think the Republican Party, I think you can safely say that they've become quite obvious in almost everything they do. There's no subtlety there.
Yeah, I mean, but they,
And not only on racial matters, but, you know, who they would like to see dead and, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, not subtle.
and fomenting violence and all the conspiracy stuff that they don't denounce. I mean, the Republicans are not denouncing things that in the past people would say, at least you could pretend to denounce it.
Right.
They don't even pretend to.
Right.
yeah, Paul Pelosi, for example.
Yes, exactly.
So, Marshall, maybe we should move on. can we wrap this part of the program up and thank you profoundly for leading it?
You can do that. I don't know what else we're going to move on to. But I think maybe unless there is some other agenda item, which I didn't have.
Well, see if there are any
Task
task
force that want to make comments, sure. So let's see, we have
Gail's still here.
Gail, is there anything you want to provide to us?
Yeah. The a meeting of the task force is moved because of Friday's party to the 18th. So we hope that people will join us. I think we have things to discuss regarding the elections and also regarding programs going forward. I would mention that bail is still unresolved. There's huge problems around bail. And the other thing is, if you haven't already read Cadillac Desert, even though it was written a long time ago, as background to understanding what's going on with water, it's absolutely stunning. It's a terrific read. It's a gripping read, and the facts will blow you out of the water. I think that all parties, almost every politician around, bears a terrible burden of shame for what they've done to water in the West. And I don't think anybody quite realizes the depth of the problem, that we never should have developed as much as we did. We never had enough water to do what we were doing. And now we're doing more of the same with less water. We never had enough, and now we have less water and we're still developing. And the other thing is, I don't know how on earth we can still keep building offices while we wring our hands about housing. It's like, this boggles my mind. That's my comment that I'm sharing. So we might talk about some of those things on the
name of the read, Gail, what's the name of the read that you mentioned?
Cadillac Desert. It was written a while ago. I came across a paperback that had an update in the back. So it's not entirely updated with all the latest bureaus and the latest wrinkles, but as background to what's been going on, it's absolutely stunning.
Could you put the reference in the chat?
Okay, I'll try to do that. I'm not always successful. That's into my comments, I think.
Or maybe
Although
Diana could just follow up with the minutes and reference.
I think that all of our politicians are afraid to touch some of these important environmental issues because they know that all their money will vanish and they will be primaried, and it will be a catastrophe for them. So they just don't even barely dare to touch some of these issues. I don't know. We just have to work hard as we can. Thank you.
Okay, and Flavia, you have your hand up, and then I have a comment about what you just said too.
So, yeah, I wanted to report that one of the propositions that Oregon passed successfully was to declare that healthcare be given as much priority in state legislature affairs as public schools. So in other words, they have a responsibility to make sure that affordable health care is available to everybody who lives in Oregon. So I thought that was a good resolution, and I'm really glad that it passed.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, there is a decision up before the Supreme Court, Harper v. Moore, that is trying to decide whether or not to allow state legislatures to decide on districting without interference from state courts. And so that's like taking out a judicial oversight step. And so I think that's going to have huge implications going forward, however that turns out.
Just a comment, which probably dovetails into both of what you've just said, Flavia, but also definitely into what Gail said. Because, the water issues and the housing issues are all key climate crisis issues. And they're also key growth issues, because growth has been, an absolute third rail to take on, because you have to have growth, you have to have more jobs and so on. And one of the things that we've talked about tangentially is the sustainable economy issue. We cannot continue growing indefinitely. It isn't possible. And yet we act as though growing indefinitely is what we have to do. And there are people that are working on, models not for a sustainable economy. And I'm going to make it a point of myself to come up with some knowledgeable speakers on some of these models in the coming year. Okay, Diana, you have your hand up.
I think Flavia was before me. Oh, she's okay. So one, I have a couple of environmental things to report. I couldn't find my notes without disturbing the Zoom screen. I couldn't find my notes for our last social justice meeting, which maybe Susie took anyway. But I wanted to report that some of the things that communities are doing, Redwood City is one, so that's the one I know best, that we're requiring the developers we already have purple pipes under all the new developments. That's been happening for years. And now we're requiring that those new developments actually connect them to the recycled water, so that the new developments are not taking potable water for washing machines and toilets and things like that, and landscaping. So that's that. And after, you all may remember the presentation we had with David Bloom about turning waste into alcohol. And I wanted to report to you that I've been talking to Josh Becker's staff about using San Mateo County and Santa Clara County as a pilot to turn waste into alcohol. And that alcohol will be used for creating ethanol for city and county vehicles. So it's kind of a loop kind of thing that I'm very excited about. So, and Zoe Lofgren is, she's starting a bill, she's writing a bill that would influence the same kind of idea at the federal level. So I'm working with her staff to create a similar bill for California. So just wanted to let you know about that.
Great. Ashley, you have your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that before we leave, we talk about our holiday party, which is coming up in December. I believe it's been moved to Friday rather than Wednesday, right? We moved it out 2 days. So it's going to be that first Friday in December, and it's in person. There are not that many people on the call, so we'll have to get the word out other ways. Susie has been putting it in the newsletter, but it's going to be a glorious in-person get together. And we are asking that everyone have their boosters, their vaccinations up to current. So be aware of that. We are asking that. Other than that, it's a potluck. It's going to be fun. All those desserts that Marshall mentioned at the beginning of the meeting will be there, plus a lot of other good things. Marshall, did you have a chance to check our wine supply from Christmas?
I will make sure that we will have a wine supply.
Okay. And
I've tested them all And I can tell you, no,
And so now we don't have a wine supply.
right, it's all gone.
So I wanted to say that I actually did have it on Wednesday. So, but if we agreed to have it
Oh,
on
is it
Friday,
Wednesday?
then
Good.
I'll move it to Friday because I can.
No, I don't, I think I just couldn't remember. I know we talked about moving
It's
it.
in the minutes, but I remember seeing it, but I don't remember which day.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll look and I'll confirm.
Whatever
whichever
is
one.
on whatever is on the newsletter is correct.
Oh, okay, it's on the newsletter. Good. So
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that because we're not going to be outside, I am considering keeping the doors open if that would make people more comfortable. We do want everyone to be fully vaccinated and so, respecting people that way. But in addition, if it would make people more comfortable to keep the doors open, and we decide to do that, I mean, I personally don't care, but I know my daughter expects that when she comes to my house to keep the doors open. So
What
if-
about masks?
no, we're going to be eating and drinking and stuff, so masks are not going to help.
We'll
But,
know when your nose gets cold.
and so either make the decision we're going to leave the doors open and layer, so be sure that you're wearing, something cozy, or we'll keep the doors closed. But it's up to you. I just wanted to let you know that I'm open to that option if that would make people feel more comfortable. Because the most important thing is that we want as many people to come and enjoy themselves as possible.
Yeah, and we are going to have the poetry contest. So that's a big draw. Start composing. Oh, look I see people immediately, their heads went down. They're starting to compose. So
Okay,
it's going to be great, and we'll make sure everybody knows about it.
hey,
And,
Flavia,
and remember, it is a potluck, so that's never a problem for us.
if the wine isn't any good, I can bring the pot.
That's right. That's right.
Okay,
We should do that
Flavia,
anyway, Marshall.
well, it's a potluck, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
what-
right. See how lucky you get with the pot.
Flavia,
Yeah, so I did want to mention that the newsletter still says December 7th on it.
Okay,
So-
good. That's
Yeah.
the day then. That's the
Yeah.
day.
Yep. So that's what I had my hand up for.
Excellent. Thank you.
okay, good. Okay, any other comments?
Susie will be so proud if we get out of here early.
Yes, well, I wouldn't oppose it. So I'm going to call this meeting adjourned.
Well
Great.
done, Marshall. Well
Great,
done.
Great
Well
seeing
done.
you. Good
Thank you,
discussion.
Marshall.
Right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the chocolate, by the way.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yes, have
Happy
a great
Thanksgiving,
holiday,
everyone.
everybody.
See everybody for real in December.
Right?
Yes, okay.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring my parka. I'm gonna bring my down jacket, Diana.
Yeah, that's up to you. Yeah.
We don't
get
Marshall,
it-
we gotta put something on our heads too,
Yeah, we don't get a chance to wear our down jackets very often.
Yeah.
besides our brains.
Okay,
Good night, everyone.
good night all.